Today's guest is one of the country's top NLP trainers, author and host of the Naked podcast. Over the past 30 years, he has impacted more than 4,000 lives across 45 countries. And today he's going to share with you new insights, ideas and information so you can achieve high performance in your business. Would you please help me welcome Chris Lianos? Welcome.
G'day, Daniel.
Mate, g'day. How you doing there?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Well, I could be better. My Facebook got hacked this morning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, at 11:57 p.m. last night.
Right.
And I think they've been trying for the past week. So let's see how well I manage the emotions today.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you realise how bad you need it, especially when
Yeah.
all your contacts are on there and how you run business. So let's see if the Facebook gods can recover my account.
Well, sending you Facebook love, mate. Sending you Facebook love.
Yeah, well, send some bank account details to the hacker and let's fish them. Let's get them back.
100%.
Now, before you started to specialise in NLP, what was the dream that you started with, and what excited you about that dream?
Yeah. I started, I suppose I was an entrepreneur from very young. I remember my earliest entrepreneurial extravaganza. I was 14 years old, and we'd found some old books on the street and some magazines, and I took them to school and started selling them for 50 cents and started making some money that way. So I've always had an entrepreneurial dream, and that led me into network marketing, and did very well in the network marketing space. And then my upline disappeared overnight, went to another organization and took my entire downline with him. And for those not in network marketing, basically my business disappeared overnight. So I knew about personal development and big fan of Tony Robbins and the like. And I thought if I can fix my brain, because obviously I've created this, if I can fix my brain, if I can fix my limiting beliefs, whatever was in my way, and maybe I can go back into the network marketing space and rule the world in the network marketing space. And when I went through my personal development journey, I realized that I love helping people so much. And that was actually the drive behind network marketing. I just didn't realize it at that point. Helping people have their dreams and achieving their goals. And that was kind of the precursor to me moving into the NLP field. So it's always been about helping people and being in that entrepreneurial space. But I'm not an entrepreneur by heart because I spent 30 years in corporate. So I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I just have this spirit of entrepreneurial within me.
My family used to own a pawnbroking business, and for the Aussies, they'll know things like cash converters. And we used to own that type of business, and I remember people bringing in bags of games, and one day a guy came into the shop, and he had this big black plastic bag, and it was full to the brim. And I was so curious. I wanted to know what was inside the bag.
Yes.
And he came up to the counter, and he said, "Would you like to buy some games?" And I said, "Well, open up the bag, give me a look." And I had a look inside, and I went, "Oh, wow. These are Atari games." And I could hear the cash register in my head going, "Ching." And I said, "Well, what do you want for them?" And he goes, "Well, I was going to throw them away, so how does $1 sound?" And I said, "Just $1?" And he said, "Yeah, that'd be all." So we counted out the games, and there was about 83 games in there. And I said, "Well, that'd be $83. And he said, "Well, would you round it up to 85? And I said, "I'd be delighted." So I gave him 85. We took his ID. We did the paperwork. And then at that time, I started to sell them in the shop, but also on eBay. And I remember some of these Atari games were selling for a couple of $100 each. And he was going to throw them away. So he was pumped that he got $85 for them. And I was super stoked that I made hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these games. But you got to get curious, don't you? You got to think what's inside. Yeah. And that's the interesting part of the mind. It's hard to see inside of it if you don't have the tools.
Yes.
Now, before you learned NLP and you were on your journey, I hear you saying that you lost your downline in MLM, and that's a big thing because away with that goes your income.
Yes.
What were some of the other challenges that you were having personally or professionally during that 30 years? Because I believe a lot of people, they have an entrepreneurial spirit within them, but it's been contained by that environment of the corporate. So what were some of the challenges that you were having?
Yeah, I was on the escalation ladder to success in corporate. I was climbing the corporate ladder, doing really well. Um, but at some point, I started, I think maybe resenting is the right word, all the controls and all the claustrophobia of corporate, of having somebody else control, what I can do and what I can't do. And I had to follow instructions and that I didn't believe in. And in 2006, I had a massive fall from grace at work where I was asked to do something and I did it and it backfired and I was pulled over the coals by my manager and my job was threatened and my livelihood was threatened. So I had a lot of resistance to being controlled and I really felt that there was something better that I could do. I have an inherent need to help. But I couldn't do that when everything was being controlled around me. 9 to 5, here's when you can go to the bathroom break. Here's the rules that you have to abide by. And I think what happened for me was that for 30 years, I lived that life and I was frightened to really trust in that entrepreneurial spirit and what I have. And that fear got in the way and my beliefs then started reinforcing the fear and the fear reinforced the beliefs and day and day and day. And then you just get into this, the hamster wheel. You're going around and around and you don't even realize it's happening because it becomes normal. It becomes your everyday experience and it became comfortable. And when something is normal and comfortable and easy and you can do it every day, you don't realize that life is starting to wither away and you're losing days just doing something. And I no longer wanted to live that way. I thought, it's time for me. If I'm ever going to do it, I have to do it because at some point I'm not going to have that opportunity anymore. And I decided to really trust myself and give this entrepreneurial spirit a go, knowing that if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to corporate. So I always had that safety net.
I remember heading down to the night market with my wife one day and I'd never seen a hamster on a wheel in real life. I'd always seen it on Instagram or YouTube, and I went down to the night market and there was the hamster on the wheel and it was this fat little thing and it was running around a million miles an hour, four legs running on the hamster wheel. And I started to laugh because I thought, look at all that energy that hamster's putting into running, yet it's not going anywhere. Yeah. It's just stuck in the same place and it's exerting all of this energy. And then after I'd say about 60 seconds, you could start to see it get puffed out. And I was watching closer and it was like my vision just had zoomed in on just the hamster on the wheel. And then I saw its tiny little hamster feet, and they're tiny, those things. And it grabbed the side of the wheel and literally it stopped. But because there was inertia and there was momentum, the hamster wheel kept spinning around and the hamster was stuck on it and was going from bottom to top, bottom to top, bottom to top. Yeah. And then I think it got scared and it let go. And as soon as it let go, it flew up out of the wheel and it flew up about a foot outside of the cage. And it just was suspended in there and it dropped back down to earth. Bang!
Yes.
And it landed back in the cage and it landed on its back. And it was like a turtle on its back. It had its little paws up there and it was dazed and confused. Yes, and I think it just got out of corporate.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, I'm out.
And the crazy thing, I was laughing and I said to my wife, I said, come and have a look at this. I said, this feels like my life. And interesting enough, the hamster could have done 1,000 other things, but what did it do? Went back to what was familiar. It just got straight back on that hamster wheel, yes, although it was in pain. Yes. And I think you're right. We do this out of fear, and that fear, starts to create negative thinking, and that negative thinking then reinforces that fear, and those thoughts turn into fears, and those fears influence those thoughts, and it can be very frightening. Yes. 30 years. 100%. I heard a gentleman say recently, Daniel, the only thing I got after 30 years of corporate was bad health and a lack of self-awareness. He said, I don't even know who I am. And to dovetail on what you were saying before, he had made no decisions. He was told when to start, yes, when to finish, when to eat, how to do his hair, what to wear, what to say, what to think.
Yes. And
he'd lost that in himself.
Yes. Yeah, that's very common, I think, in the corporate world.
What did you see in your colleagues as you were going through that? Could you see the same thing in your colleagues, or were you trying to figure it out for yourself?
Oh, I definitely saw it in my colleagues. One of my very close friends had a nervous breakdown at work. I think what's interesting is we don't notice what we're seeing. Like in corporate, I was also managing a lot of people. You manage people's sick leave as an example, right? Corporate doesn't like to have a lot of people off because they lose money. So when sick leave is going up, we tend to say, well, people are unwell, but they're also mentally struggling by doing the same thing all the time. They lose motivation. They lose that spark to really give the job 100%. Most people in corporate who have been there a while are only running at 30 or 40%. In fact, I used to joke that in corporate, I could show up and give 20% or 30% of effort and still get paid 100%. And that's a scary concept, because if you've been there long enough and you know the job, you just get stuck in doing what is required to get the minimum pass mark. And then you can very easily just stay there. And I saw this happen with my colleagues. They had relationship troubles, they had health problems. Why? Because they didn't really want to be there, and they were doing something that didn't excite them, had no passion. It was just there to pay the bills, and it was safe. And that's not a way to live.
Well, it could be worse.
Could be.
Other people don't have a job.
Yes.
There's worse companies out there.
Yes.
And if I just do it for another 10 to 15 years, then I can pay off the mortgage.
Yes.
And then I might be able to afford a Greek holiday. And I might be able to fly Emirates Airline.
Yes.
And I might just get deep vein thrombosis on the way over.
Yeah.
And a fish allergy on the way home. Gee.
Yeah.
But if I can, it could be worse. There's people out there starving. It's interesting when we go through those periods, and I worked in a corporate and I was working at the bank. And the first thing that I realised that was taken away from me was my freedom to think. There was a script to follow, and you had to follow the script, and you weren't allowed to think outside the lines. And if you did, they quickly reprimanded the behaviour, even if there was a potential to make or save the company a lot of money.
Yes.
And I remember I was negotiating a deal, and I said to the person on the other end of the phone, I said, if you decided to make this payout today, that'd be an extra case of beer that you could drink every single week. And he laughed his head off, because when I looked at his credit card statements, he'd been going down to the bottle shop. So I knew alcohol was important. I was just trying to build a bit of rapport. And they come over and they roasted me. And they said, how dare you say that? And I said, well, that was just his model of the world. That was what was important to him. And when I said to him, you could have an extra case of beer a week, he realised how that important that was, and he paid out straight away. Yes. Oh, well, Daniel, you can't say that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, maybe this is not the right place for me. And I exited, and I got out really fast. But it was uncomfortable. No creativity.
I hear that a lot from people. A lot of my friends are still in corporate. And of course, this isn't just corporate. This could be in any area of life. Where we lose that ability to think for ourselves, to make our own decisions, to be able to live our life the way we want to promote what we want to promote. There's an element of our spark that dies with that. And the longer we allow that to happen, I think we lose a way for us to enjoy our life. So it's a dangerous environment if we're not aware of it.
100%. Now, you're one of the country's top NLP trainers. What role has NLP played in your life? Yeah.
So when I just going back to the multi-level marketing, when my business collapsed, my whole point of learning NLP was, if I can sharpen this in my head, the 6 inches between my ears, get rid of my limiting beliefs, I'll go in and master it. So I went in for a very selfish reason, to be able to remove any of the blocks that I personally had, that I felt I had: money blocks, success blocks, things like I'm not worthy of money, I'm not worthy. I've come from a very poor family.
So money didn't grow on trees out the back of your house?
If it did, it was one of those invisible trees. I never saw it, right?
You weren't always tightening your belt like my mother?
I remember I got a second-hand bike for Christmas one day. Because we just didn't have a lot of money. We were a Department of Housing, so that's a housing commission. But my parents didn't have a car. I didn't learn to drive until I was 23. So I had a lot of money blocks, and I had to let those go. I had a lot of personal esteem issues and self-belief issues. What I thought I was capable of, had to let those go in order for me to live into my potential. And And in that journey, I recognized how much I really wanted to help other people and how effective, if we can help other people release what is their block, what is stopping them from achieving what they want, then how much better would their life be? Because this is the ripple effect, right? You help one person, and then it's not just their life that changes. Their kids change, their partners change, their colleagues change. So I went in to fix me and came out of that with this vision of, wow, if I can do this for myself, I have a duty to share this and help other people who are also in pain. They may not even realize it, or maybe they do realize it and don't think there is a way out. And NLP for me was a magic solution almost, because it worked so fast.
It's interesting how that impoverished mindset can get passed down through the generations. And I've seen it in my family. When I was 30 and I was living in Dubai, I'd just got married, and my wife said to me, "Husband, let's go to the movies." And my response was, "Oh, we can't afford that." And she looked at me and she said, "What?" And then the next week's like, "Can we go out for dinner?" Well, we can't afford that. We're not rich people. You know, we're just on the average income. And then months later, "Husband, can we go on a honeymoon?" "Oh, we can't afford that. That's for rich people. We can't go there. How do you expect that we can afford that?" And I started to notice this generational pattern. Then I thought to myself, who has said that to me? Because it wasn't my voice. And my wife said, "What's going on?" And I said, "It's like my mother's talking to me."
Yes,
And every time I want something, it's like, you can't afford it.
yes.
And then there was a saying that, you got to tighten your belt. You got to tighten your belt. So I went back to Mum and I said, "Mum, I keep thinking about this saying, you got to tighten your belt. Where did that come from?" Well, she said, "Well, when your father and I bought the house, and it was 1987, 1988, it rained for a month when we first bought the house, and your father couldn't work in construction for an entire month. And there was $500,000 of loans at 18% per annum interest, as much as a credit card." And they said there was just absolutely no money, so we had to tighten the belt. And I said, "Well, where did you get this saying from?" She said, "Well, I got it from your grandmother, because your grandfather was in the Royal Australian Air Force, would travel around the country, and she was the wife of a serviceman. And they had no money, so we always had to tighten the belt." She said, "We used to live in caravans, and that was our life. We lived in Darwin in a tin shack, and that was our life." And so I asked Mum, "Well, where did you get this from?" She said, "Grandmother." I went and spoke to Grandmother. I said, "Grandmother, where did you get this tighten the belt mentality from?" She said, "Well, when I grew up, your great-grandfather left us. He left us. There was 6 children. He walked away, and your great-grandmother was a janitor at the local high school. And she had to raise 6 children on a janitor's income. And she would always say, we've got to tighten our belts. We don't know where the next paycheck's coming from. We don't know if we're going to have enough money to survive." And then, like a domino effect, all the way into 2010. I'm going, whoa, how did this come from the 1900s all the way through the 2000s and end up with me? And I realised that it had been passed down. Not necessarily something that I chose,
Yes.
but something that was just seemed to be passed down through the genealogy. And
Yes.
it was showing up. And I had to make that decision. Is this the gift that I want to give to my children? And I love
Yes.
what you said there. When you make these changes, it has a ripple effect. It impacts your children. It impacts your social network. It impacts your social scene. And I knew that that's not something that I wanted to pass down to my children.
Yes. Yes. 100%. 100%. It's
How much
fascinating when you
How
think
much did
about
your dad
that.
love you? He just passed down a bunch of limiting beliefs.
Yeah. It was very hard. It's interesting when we've got to confront that, right? We've got to confront, wow, I got that from my dad or a mum or my grandparents or whoever raised me. And they got it from their mum and dad. So whose belief is this actually? And it's fascinating when you think about it from that perspective. Thank you for raising that, because it is really a very important distinction to make. Yeah.
I worked with a guy from the UK, and I called him up and said, "Hey, mate, how you doing?" He goes, "We're in trouble." I said, "How do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm living in a motel." And I said, "You didn't break up with the missus, did you?" And he goes, No, we're good." And I said, "Well, what are you doing in a motel?" He said, "I think I saw a mouse in the house." And I said, "You think you saw a mouse in the house?" He said, "Yeah, I think I saw a mouse in the house." And I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I screamed." I said, "You screamed? Then what?" He said, "Then I jumped up on the table." I said, "After that, what'd you do?" He said, "Well, I called the fumigators and we're getting the house fumigated. So we're going to live in a motel for a month whilst it's fumigated." And it was really interesting because what he said was, I thought I saw a mouse. And I asked him again for clarification, did you see the mouse or did you just think that you saw the mouse? And he says, well, I can't be certain. I think I saw it, but I'm not sure. And I said, is there anybody else in your family who is afraid of mice? And he goes, yeah, my mum. My mum hates them. And I said, well, have you ever seen your mum see a mouse? And he goes, well, mum saw a mouse when I was about 7. She screamed. She jumped up on the table. She moved us all out of the house into a motel for a month, and we got the house fumigated. And he looked at me and he went, have I just turned into my mother? And he had repeated the same pattern. But the difference was for him was he wasn't even certain if there was a mouse or not. Yes. And it was that same generational pattern that he had to break. Now, when people are using NLP and your clients are experiencing these transformations, what are the transformations that you're seeing in these people? What are those changes in their life that you're witnessing?
Yeah, I think the quickest and most obvious change is at the event, you see people automatically lighten when they release these generational beliefs of I'm not good enough, I can't do it, and it goes. Mm-hmm. It is almost like seeing a different person. They're lighter. Color changes on their face. They have this belief that they can now go out and go for their goal, go for their dream, achieve what they want. When they release the emotions that have been holding them back. And emotions are interesting because we think that it's natural to feel angry or sad or embarrassed or resentful, or any of these. And it's a natural response, but it's not natural to hold onto it. And there's a really big difference between it. When we work with people and they release these emotions or the emotional charge to events from the past, and they can look at these events and no longer feel that is life-changing. That is absolutely life-changing. So we have these emotional, we have these belief changes, and then we have financial changes. We have relationship changes where they go out, and I've had clients who've been able to manifest 10, 15 times their income. We worked with a property developer who went out straight after the event, and he sold 5 properties in the first 10 days after the event. We had a lady who was looking for a relationship, and she manifested a relationship in her life. Now, I don't take credit for their success in any way because it's their success. What we did was help them get out of their own way so they can go and achieve it. Because that's, I think, the beauty of NLP is it's like a tool that can go in and help you get out of your own way. And we've had so many successes across our clients in all different areas: relationship, money, health, where people lose tons of weight. We had a lady who lose 32 kilos over a period of about 7 months. So it wasn't, 1 week. It's an extended period of time. I think one of my biggest moments, Daniel, is we worked with a lady who I had no idea she suffered anxiety. And she came to the event. And on day 1, she went through and she did what she needed to do. And when we finished the event on day 5, she came to me and said, I nearly walked out on day 1 because I had panic attacks while I was there. And I'm so glad I didn't, because I now feel free of that. Now, that felt like that's a really significant change for her, but I was like, cool, let's see what happens. Mm. And within a year, she manifested 3 additional income streams in her life. She got pregnant, and she'd been trying to get pregnant for a while. And now you
don't claim responsibility for that one, do you?
No responsibility whatsoever. Now she's teaching her children the mindset that she learned in the event and impacting their life. And we went and had lunch with her a couple of weeks ago, and I met her young daughter, and her young daughter's like, I'm amazing, I'm great, I can do anything I want. And I just looked at her and I thought, wow, this is that ripple effect. It's not just one person we impact, and that really excites me.
Interesting you mentioned pregnancy, because when we do our trainings, a lot of women get pregnant after the training. And they call up and they say, Daniel, I'm pregnant. And my wife looks at me. And I say, well, that's the power of NLP.
Right.
And for people who are finding it hard to fall pregnant. One of the things that Christian Science discovered many years ago, that during intercourse, if a woman fears pregnancy, or she has other limiting beliefs of like, I can't be a good mum, if I get married and have a child, my family split up, the same thing's probably going to happen to me. Maybe there's other traumatic events in the past where they've even lost a child. And what they discovered is that the uterus can actually contract, and the fallopian tubes will contract, and no semen will get through to the eggs during intercourse.
Wow.
And then within a split second, literally after the intercourse is over, all the tubes will open back up. The fallopian tubes will open back up.
Wow.
And so it's a fear response that's taking place within the body that you can't see. It's invisible. And I was helping a lady in America, and she went to a Tony Robbins event, and she found her life's purpose. She got emotional freedom, and she also found a new man at the event whilst her other man was at home. Now, she had been having IVF for years and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and still couldn't fall pregnant. But she always had this fear within her that the relationship would end because it was toxic at the start, and she feared that it would end because of its toxicity, and she couldn't fall pregnant. But once she released those emotions and found the love of her life at the Tony Robbins event, she fell pregnant immediately.
Yes.
So the body always knows what to do.
Yes.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that. Now, coming up is your next NLP certification. It's a 5-day transformational event. Can you tell us more about your event and what we can expect to learn and what we can expect to take away from the 5-day NLP practitioner certification?
Absolutely. So our focus in our event is really around creating this ripple effect. So I really get excited about helping people learn how to be able to impact the lives of others. So we spend a lot of time in the coaching space, teaching people how to actually make an impact, how to be visible, intentional, how to be prosperous. The NLP event itself has a few frameworks that are very important. One is teaching students how to actually use communication to achieve their results, what they actually want to do. So we can communicate and think that we are being understood, but communication and actually being understood is a little bit different. So NLP has a basis in communication, and we make sure that our students are clear communicators, so that they can also be free for themselves, free from procrastination, free from limiting beliefs or false beliefs, things that aren't true about themselves. It's all about having that clear vision for themselves. And I find that when we can create, as we say in the website, creating a non-negotiable commitment, it's very important that we can commit for ourselves and be able to follow through on that. So we teach our students how to communicate effectively, how to be able to handle the objections that are coming up in our own minds, how to be able to coach other people to have those breakthroughs, to release false beliefs, release emotional blocks, how to be able to integrate and be congruent. I think one of the greatest influences for me in NLP is this congruency effect, where I no longer have part of me wants to do this, part of me wants to do that. Part of me wants to stay in corporate, part of me wants to leave. Part of me wants to start a business, part of me doesn't. So we make sure that these are all congruent, and we do that by giving out 3 certifications. We give 3 globally recognized certifications. One is on NLP practitioner. One is an NLP coaching certification, and that's my real passion, training people to be coaches. And timeline therapy, which is a modality within the NLP field to be able to let go of emotions and false beliefs. It's something that I'm very passionate about. On screen there, you can see Mitch. He's one of our big success stories. He's an entrepreneur out of Sydney, and he's a multi-7-figure income earner, tens of millions of dollars in sales. He's an absolute legend, and he used NLP to be able to let go of the blocks that were holding him back from escalating his success. And one of the key things for him was he wanted to be a father, and he's now got 4 children, which is just absolutely amazing. I'm really, really excited for him.
Amazing. Yeah.
So we've got the event coming up in just over 7 days, 8 days it starts, and we've got a couple of different ways to pay. We've got some bonuses there. But in a nutshell, what I would say is that this event is perfect for anybody who wants to be able to be better. If you want a way to be able to help other people, if you're looking to get into the coaching space and become a coach and be able to create that ripple effect out, not just for yourself, but for other people, this event is designed for that. And we have a small, intimate event. We have less than 20 people in the event. We do that intentionally so that we can serve people one-on-one. It's a virtual event. You can do it from anywhere. But I really want to support everybody who wants to get out and make the world a better place, starting with ourselves, but then creating that ripple effect out into the world.
And we got to do it for ourselves first. I asked somebody the other day, I said, what's your goal? And they said to become a millionaire. I said, beautiful, can you lend me $1 million? And they said, well, I don't have $1 million. And I said, well, could you lend me $500,000? They said, I don't have $500,000. And I said, well, could you lend me $100,000? They said, I don't have $100,000. And I said, well, could you lend me $1,000? And they said, I don't have $1,000. And I said, well, I'd just like to prove a point. You can't give what you don't have. And I think what we've got to realise is that we don't have confidence in ourselves. We can't give it to our children.
Yes.
If we don't have faith in our own abilities, we can't have faith in others. And if we want to create financial independence for the generations that follow and we don't create it for ourselves, then they'll end up repeating the same mistakes as we have. And I believe in these tools. And I believe that they're transformational, and the transformation starts with you. And once you've got it, then you can give it to others.
Yes, 100%.
And I love that story of Mitch there, multiple seven-figure earner. And it proves that you don't have to wait a long time. These tools that you've got are instantaneous, and they work today. You don't have to wait.
Yeah.
Why wait? Who wants to wait?
34 years old, I think. Mitch is 34. 34 years old. Multiple tens of millions of dollars in sales. Just incredible. Just incredible.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want it, I want you to go over to Chris Lianos Coaching. I'm going to put the link in the show notes below. And if you want to learn more about NLP, have a look at the Wizard Arises virtual event. It'll be a phenomenal event. I've known Chris for years. He's a great trainer. He's got phenomenal results with his students. And that's how you know a trainer's good. You just look at their students. And his students are winning in all areas of their life. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Any final thoughts to people who are ready to make that change? People who have been dealing with and wrestling with those fears, doubts, and those limiting beliefs. Any final thoughts of wisdom for them?
Absolutely. I think I'll just go back to my experience. I can talk from what worked for me, is that we have to make a decision to change, and we've got to do it. It's not going to just happen. If it's not going to happen today, it's not just going to manifest itself a year from now. If you're wrestling with these challenges, you have the opportunity to make a change. And what I always say to my students is, when the universe gives you an opportunity to change, it's up to us to take that step. It's not going to just magically come inside. We must take that step out. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and that's part of the change. We've got to step in, lean into what's uncomfortable to have what we want. So I encourage you to please have a look at the event. I'm pretty easygoing, as you can see. So we'll definitely help you out and help you have the success you want.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, go to Chris Lianos Coaching. I'll put the link in the show notes below and learn more about the Wizard Arises virtual event. Chris, thanks for being here with us today. Appreciate your insights, your wisdom, and your years of experience.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, one new idea at the right time is enough to change your life. Go to Chris Lianos Coaching right now, and we'll see you soon. Have a wonderful day.